We don't want to hear that weak shit no more. Man should have all that. Let's get lost tonight. You could be my black Kate Moss tonight. Play secretary on the boss tonight. And you don't give a fuck what they all say, right? Awesome, the Christian and Christian Dior. Damn, they don't make them like this anymore. I ask, cause I'm not sure. Do anybody make real shit anymore? I feel it. No one man should have all that power. Don't act like I never told you. No one man should have all that power. Everybody says, who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was. A god. I just told you. That's who I think I am. How could you be so honest? Oh, how could you be so honest? How could you be so heartless?
Hello everyone, and welcome once more to the Eurotrips YouTube channel. This marks the first of a mini-series of previews for the 2023-24 football season, and I'd like to start with what will undoubtedly be a controversial video: which team has the best starting 11 in European football. Now, I'll be doing a top 5 at the end of the video, but also speaking on a few other big clubs around Europe as well. But before we start the video, I want to reiterate that I am not some tactical genius. I do not watch all of these teams week in, week out, so I don't want to come across as someone that's trying to sound like a genius when it comes to these teams and that I know exactly what I'm talking about, because I don't most of the time. And if you want a more relevant opinion, should I say, and someone who watches these teams far more often and has a deeper knowledge of tactics, then I thoroughly recommend a whole host of other channels, and more specifically a guy called Alex, the Euro expert on Twitter, who puts so much time and effort into his videos, and he knows what he's talking about when it comes to tactics. Now, it's only right to start with the reigning champions of Europe themselves, Manchester City, and I think going into this season they are a little bit weaker because they have lost Ilkay Gundogan and Riyad Mahrez, two players that have been massively influential over the last few years. But that's still an incredible 11, it's got to be said. It looks like Gvardiol will arrive from RB Leipzig, and to have Gvardiol and Ruben Diaz in the back three or even a back two, that's just insane. Now, I think Nathan Ake could potentially be upgraded upon. Whether he will play there or whether they will look to Aymeric Laporte, I don't know. But John Stones and Rodri in those defensive midfield roles protecting the back three, I mean, you couldn't really ask for two better players in those positions. John Stones was absolutely sensational last season, and we know Rodri is probably the best defensive midfielder in the world. But looking at the attacking area of the pitch, I think it's fair to say that they've got the best midfielder and the best striker currently in world football in Kevin De Bruyne and Erling Haaland. But the other three positions are quite interesting because Jack Grealish did massively improve last season, and it's not out, the realms of possibility that he could improve again this season. Phil Foden and Bernardo Silva, though, are they necessarily suited to that style of play? That will be the big question, and it will be interesting to see if Pep does indeed look to bring in any more attacking players. Julian Alvarez is not in this system, so they do have him as well, but at the moment I think it's an unbelievable team, and a 9 out of 10 I think is a fair rating. Now hopping across to the other side of Manchester and looking at Manchester United's team for next season, this is what I believe they will go with if they do indeed sign Rasmus Højlund from Atalanta, and I very much like this starting 11. I don't know whether Mason Mount is a upgrade on Christian Eriksen or not. That's for others to decide. I think they're very similar in terms of what their level they're currently at. Obviously Christian Eriksen is far more experienced. But I like the team. I think Andre Onana is a massive upgrade on David De Gea. Luke Shaw was much better last season, as was Aaron Wan-Bissaka. We know Rafael Varane is one of the elite centre-backs of European football. Casemiro protecting that defence, we know how good he is. A Mount-Fernandes partnership in midfield will be very interesting to watch. But what lets United down, I feel, for next season is the attack. Because Antony, I'm sorry to say, he is literally the Brazilian Nicolas Pepe. He is all show, no end product. You can see he's got some lovely skills in his locker, and fair play, he might have. But when it comes to goals and assists, he doesn't bring enough. And I can't see it for next season. I'm sorry, I can't. So I feel he lets that right-hand side down. Now, of course, we know how good Marcus Rashford is, but it's whether he plays on the left or whether he plays in the middle. Depending on if they do indeed sign a striker or not, they may look to play him as a striker, and they may look to Jadon Sancho on the left. If that is indeed how they go, it's still a strong 11. And if they do sign Højlund, it'll be an interesting one, because he is a mega talent, don't get me wrong. And I watched him a few times last season for Atalanta, but he's still very raw. And I don't know if he'll come in and score the necessary amount of goals for Manchester United this season, because obviously they're going to want a challenge for the title, you would imagine, or at least minimum getting the Champions League. So to do that, you need a striker that's going to bag you at least 10-15 goals. Whether Højlund can do that, I'm not so sure straight away. He definitely can in the future, don't get me wrong. But I think for the time being, I'm going to look at that team and say it's a 7.5 out of 10, because they could upgrade in at least 2 areas, if not 3, with Victor Lindelof at the back. So I think a 7.5 out of 10 is a fair rating for this United team going into next season. Moving swiftly on now to Spain, and with Real Madrid for next season, their starting 11, at least the one that I've picked, looks very interesting. I can't see many weak areas in that team at all, in all honesty, apart from one single position, and that is the striker. They've replaced Karim Benzema, one of the greatest strikers in the club's history, and still today one of the elite strikers in world football, with Joselu. Like, no disrespect, that's like swapping your mattress for a bit of cardboard. You know, I don't mean to be rude or offensive or anything to Joselu. I'm sure he's a half decent striker, but come on, this is Real Madrid. Like, that can't be their striking option going into next season. Surely not. I mean, they haven't got much weakness anywhere else on the pitch. You look at, you know, Courtois in goal, Danny Carvajal, yeah, he's probably past his best. But the rest of the players, Militao, Rudiger, Alaba, Tchouaméni, Jude Bellingham, Valverde, Rodrigo, Vinicius Jr., like, that is a fantastic team. And the kind of depth that they have is incredible as well. For me, that's the best midfield in world football. But it is the striking position which lets them down massively. And with that, I think the rating of an 8 there. However, if they did manage to bring in Kylian Mbappe, I reckon that moves to a 9.5, even a 10 out of 10. Now, looking at the other big dog in Spanish football, Barcelona. And this 11 for next season is a strange one to rate, because looking at the defence, I mean, that is top quality. Ter Stegen's one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Jules Koundé at right back is very good player. Ronald Araujo and Christensen, decent centre-back partnership. Balde is a very exciting young left-back. And looking at that midfield, I mean, Frenkie de Jong, Pedri and Gavi, I'm sure that will be the midfield going into next season. It has to be. And it might yet be a year or two away from being able to take Barcelona to the Champions League final, for example. But the potential there is frightening. The 2 areas of concern, in my opinion, are the wide areas. Rafinha and Ousmane Dembele, there's no doubt on their days they are wonderfully gifted players, and they can provide assists and they can score goals. But they don't have enough of them. They don't have enough of them good days. Rafinha, you know, we know his quality from when he was in the Premier League, but he hasn't hit the ground running in Spain. And Ousmane Dembele seems to be injured more often than not, and that is not going to be any good to Barcelona going forward this season. So they're the only two areas I believe that they could improve on massively. Lewandowski up front, I mean, he guarantees you goals. You know, that's one area where they do not have to worry. But I'd like to see them upgrade in that area if they could. They also have Ansu Fati and Ferran Torres, and they're two players that, if they can fulfill their potential this season, they can both start in those positions and really score some goals and create some as well going forward. But Fati's had a difficult 12 to 18 months, and Ferran Torres has just not hit the ground at all running since joining Man City. He's been so underwhelming. So I think, looking at that Barca team, I think an 8 out of 10 is a fair rating. It's clear to see that they could upgrade on 2 or 3 positions with world-class talent. Of course, we know their financial issues are prohibiting them from being able to spend the kind of money that we're used to seeing them spend, but I don't think that's a harsh rating. I think it's pretty fair, and like I say, if some of those wide players step up to the kind of potential that we know that they can get to, then that rating at the end of the season could jump to 8.5 if not 9 out of 10. Back to England now, and where to even begin with Liverpool for next season. I mean, let's be real, their midfield may as well have all left last season based on how they performed, but they've lost 5 midfielders now, 3 leaving on free transfers, and Jordan Henderson and Fabinho both leaving to go to Saudi Arabia. This is what I think their formation could very well be for next season, and looking at that, it's an exciting lineup. And the formation, if they went with that, they would score goals, that I have no doubt. But how many goals would they concede? That is the real question, because, I mean, there's no doubt about Alisson. Christ, he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, if not the best. But the 3 in front of him, Virgil van Dijk for many years has probably been the best centre-back in England, maybe even in the world. But last season, his form dropped off a cliff. So there's going to be doubts going into him for next season. Konate is a good defender. You know, I don't mind him. Robertson was a little bit similar to Van Dijk last season, wasn't at his best. I mean, let's be real, not many of Liverpool's players were. But even still, could he play that role? The left-back, centre-back hybrid kind of position would be an interesting one to see. However, I think the one thing everyone can agree on is that Trent needs moving into that midfield role, a bit like the same kind of role as John Stones, because that is where he plays the best. We've seen it in the past, both for club and country. He is not a right back anymore. He is too much of a liability there, and that you need to get the best out of him. You need to get the strengths out of him, and that is his passing and the way that he can just move around the pitch. Obviously his set pieces as well, but obviously Thiago next to him, I mean, Thiago's made of glass these days, so that's one area that they have to bring someone in for. Obviously that's where they're being linked with many players, but it seems they've missed out on a fair number of their targets, and you do wonder who they will end up signing for that position. In terms of Alexis McAllister, top signing. For how much they paid for him, if indeed there's what they did actually pay for him. Either way, they've got themselves a wonderfully gifted player there, someone that can link the midfield and the attack really nicely together. The front 4 is a mixed bag, because Mo Salah on his day is the best player in the league, no question, and last season he still scored an insane amount of goals for Liverpool. Luis Diaz on the other side, if he stays fit, can be an absolute monster. I really like Luis Diaz and I rate him highly, so if he can stay fit, and even if he doesn't, they've still got Diogo Jota as well. It's the 2 up front, Nunes and Gakpo. Now, Nunes last season, he wasn't awful. I think it was just because they had the hype around him, and for how much Liverpool paid for him, we all expected more, and he didn't quite deliver. He missed out so many good chances. You know, I imagine Liverpool fans were tearing their hair out, you know, watching him play sometimes. But if he can improve this season, I see no reason why Liverpool can't be back up there challenging. Gakpo, I don't really know what to make of Cody Gakpo. I mean, I don't really know what his best position is. I haven't watched that much of him. But if him and Darwin Núñez can combine and really create a deadly partnership up front, then that can fix Liverpool's issues going into next season. But I think looking at that team, as it stands right now, I think a 7.5 out of 10 is the rating what they should be given, quite frankly, because they have to address at least 2, if not 3 areas of the pitch, in my opinion. And whether they're going to be able to do that this summer or not, I don't know, because we know FSG do not like to give them much money to spend. Obviously, they're going to bring in a little bit of money from the sales of Jordan Henderson and from Fabinho, but it's who they get to replace them. So for now, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10, but by the end of the window, it could very well be an 8, if not an 8.5 out of 10. Onwards to our next big club now, and there's only really one place to start when it comes to PSG for next season, and that is whether Kylian Mbappe will still be there or not. The last few days, he's been left out of the pre-season squad. Basically, has no future now at PSG. We know that he has 1 year left on his contract there. It's all but certain he'll be playing for Real Madrid next season. But could it be this season? I mean, literally today, Al Hilal have offered a record 300 million euros, reportedly. I think something silly like 22 euros a second. Honestly, it's bewildering how a player could get paid such an obscene amount of money, 700 odd million a year. Fuck off. But either way, looking at this PSG team, it has quality everywhere. Donnarumma, I love Donnarumma. I think he's, again, I've said this throughout most of the teams, but so many teams have so good goalkeepers, and Donnarumma is just an animal in goal. Looking at the back four, Hakimi for me is the best right back in European football. Marquinhos, one of the best centre backs in world football. They've just brought in Milan Skriniar on a free transfer from Inter. What an absolute steal that is. And even bringing Hernandez in from Bayern is a really good signing, quite frankly. Very, very good left back. Not quite as good as his brother, but still top quality. And then looking at the midfield, Luis Enrique, who obviously is now the new manager of PSG, in the past has gone for the 4-3-3 formation. And being the manager, well, the former manager of Spain, should I say, Carlos Soler and Fabian Ruiz have both played under him. So it remains to be seen whether one or both of them will start in this system. But this is what I've gone for because I believe this is their best midfield at the moment. Manuel Ugarte is, you know, an unreal new signing. It really is. Like, it looked like for a little while he was going to go to Chelsea, but PSG have managed to get him. And having him and Marco Verratti, you know, in that midfield pivot, that's quality. It really is. And I've gone with Fabian Ruiz just in front of them because I believe he's a little more attack-minded. But Carlos Soler could very easily play that position as well. And then Neymar on one side and Marco Asensio on the other side. We know Neymar on his day is one of the best players in the world. And Asensio, I mean, they've got him on a free transfer. It's a good sign, and don't get me wrong. But that is, again, one area where they could definitely upgrade upon. But obviously now it is all eyes on whether Kylian Mbappe stays or decides to leave. And if he does leave, it'll be very interesting to see who they get to replace him. Could they go in for Harry Kane? Could they try and nick Rasmus Højlund from under Man United? I think it's going to be a very interesting last 2 months of the transfer window. I really do. So much is yet to happen. I should have maybe left this video for the end of the transfer window, but quite frankly, it is too interesting to ignore for right now. But as of right now, looking at that PSG team as it stands, I believe that is an 8.5 out of 10. Depending on whether Mbappe stays or not, it could very well go down to an 8 out of 10. But if he stayed and they upgraded on maybe Marco Asensio, or Fabian Ruiz in midfield, it could be a 9 out of 10. But right now, 8.5. Now looking at the Scudetto holders, Napoli, not too much has really changed with their starting 11 from last season. Obviously, the big one is that they've lost Kim Min-jae to Bayern Munich, which is a massive blow. He was arguably their best player last season. Obviously, all the attention went to Kvaratskhelia and to Victor Osimhen, and rightly so, because they were both absolutely unreal. But Kim Min-jae was a warrior in that defence. He held that back four together, and losing him is a massive blow. Whether or not they look to replace him, I think that will be key to whether Napoli can retain their title again next season. Because let's be honest, Kvara and Osimhen, they're only going to improve. And when you look at the rest of the team, Lobotka and Zambo Anguissa, two very, very good midfielders. Zielinski, he brings the midfield and the attack together so nicely. Elmas on the other side is a good player as well. They could play Hirving Lozano there too. In terms of the defence, I really like Alex Meret and Di Lorenzo. I think the goalkeeper and the right back, they're absolutely secure for. But the two centre backs of Rachmani and Jesus, definitely weaknesses there. And I believe left back as well with Mario Rui. Yeah, I don't know. I think they could definitely upgrade on all three of those players, as well as the right wing as well. So in saying that, I think a 7 out of 10 is a fair rating, but at the end of the window, it could potentially be a 7.5, if not an 8 out of 10. Elsewhere in Italy, Inter. Now this team focuses on two positions in which they've yet to strengthen in, but I've put two players there who they're being heavily linked with. So this is more of a hypothetical 11, but they've lost Onana in goal, and I believe they've lost Handanovic as well. So they need a new goalkeeper. The one they've been heavily linked with is Hugo Lloris. I would absolutely hate that signing because I don't rate Lloris anymore. His best days are well past him. And if there's a reason Tottenham need to get rid of him, then Christ, why do Inter need him? You know, I would prefer them to sign David De Gea, quite frankly, on a free transfer. But Folarin Balogun and a Lautaro Martinez partnership up front, I mean, whew, I would love to see that. I think Balogun was phenomenal last season for Reims in Ligue 1. And although I'd hate to see Arsenal lose him, I feel like he has to leave to get first team football. And if I was to see him go anywhere, I'd prefer it to be either Inter or to AC. They both need a striker, and I think he fits the bill perfectly. For either club, quite frankly, I think it'd suit both systems very nicely, and that's why I've put him in there alongside Martinez. In terms of the midfield, I think DeMarco and Dumfries on either side, I mean, their quality. Hakan Çalhanoğlu and Barella in midfield, we know how good they are, especially Barella, one of the best midfielders in European football. Fratesi is definitely an upgrade, I think, on Brozovic. They've done very well replacing that signing. And then looking at the back, Bastoni and De Vrij, unreal, especially Bastoni. I mean, the potential that lad has is crazy. D'Ambrosio on the other side, I mean, he's solid enough. So, I mean, they've lost Lukaku, obviously, back to Chelsea. They've lost Edin Dzeko to Fenerbahce, I believe. So, they are lacking depth, and we know that they don't have a whole lot of money to spend as well. But looking at that starting 11, I think it's the same as Napoli's. I think it's a 7 out of 10 because they could still definitely upgrade in at least 3 areas. So, 7 out of 10 for Inter. However, looking at their bitter rivals, AC Milan, I love the business that they've done this window, I really do. At the moment, there's just one player in there that's yet to actually join Milan, but I think it's pretty much going to get done, and that's Yunus Musa in midfield. Excellent signing from Valencia if they get it over the line. Massive loss for Valencia, again another summer where they're losing a top quality player. But looking at this Milan side, they've been so heavily reliant on that left-hand area of Rafael Leao and Theo Hernandez. Definitely their two best players, and they've needed a right winger for a very long time. So it's no surprise that they've gone in for Christian Pulisic this window, and I rate the move very highly. If he can get back to anywhere near his best form, then what they've paid for him is an absolute steal. It looks like as well they're going to sign Samuel Chukwueze, another fantastic bit of business. That could change how this team looks, because they could very well play Rafael Leao up top and Pulisic on one side with Chukwueze on the other side. If they do indeed that, I do think that would be an upgrade on what I'm looking at right now, because Olivier Giroud, he gets you goals, don't get me wrong, but he's not going to get you 15, 20 plus goals in the league this season, not anymore. So I think he's more now of a player to bring off from the bench, you know, to close games out and whatnot. But I would love to see a Leao, Chukwueze and Pulisic front three. That is extremely exciting, especially with Loftus-Cheek just behind them, because we know that he can get forward as well and he can score goals too. Ismail Benassar in midfield, if he does indeed start there, I like Benassar a lot. I think he's very underrated by a lot of other people. And then looking at the rest of the defence, I mean, we know Tomori is pure class. Mike Maignan is exactly the same, dripping with class. Thiaw is a little bit raw still. I think there's still maybe a year or two there before he's up to the same kind of standard. Calabria, I mean, I rate Calabria. I don't know what, you know, Milan fans of, you know, think of him, but I like him. I think he's a good right back. So looking at that Milan team, I would look at it and say it's a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's better than both Inter's and Napoli's for the time being, and I don't think that's an unfair rating. Now heading off back to England, and more specifically London. Now there are only two teams worthy of this video, and I'm going to start with the lesser important one, Chelsea. Now I actually like this starting 11. I hate to say it because it's been an absolute joy to shit on Chelsea for the last sort of 12 to 18 months. But I have to say, if they do indeed sign Moises Caicedo, I like it. I like that team a lot. I think Kepa is a decent enough goalkeeper. Reece James and Ben Chilwell, two of the best fullbacks in English football. Levi Colwill, we know how good he is and how good he can potentially be as well. Thiago Silva definitely entering, you know, the last couple of years of his career, but still elite, without a doubt. Enzo Fernandez has the potential to be the best midfielder in the Premier League. I think he's that good. Caicedo, I wouldn't love to see it, being an Arsenal fan, but from a neutral perspective, I think a Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez pivot would be intriguing to watch. I think it would work very well. Christopher Nkunku, it's either going to go one way, isn't it? It's either going to go the Timo Werner way, where he absolutely flops and is sold off back to Germany in a year or two, or it could go the other way and he could be an absolute gem for this Chelsea team. I don't know. I literally don't know, and I'm not going to predict which way it could go. Madueke on one side and Sterling on the other side, I think it's probably the way that they're going to go. Although they could maybe swap that. They could go Sterling on one side and maybe Mudryk on the other. It's hard to tell right now. It's so hard to predict this Chelsea 11 going into next season. And then the striker. Obviously they've got Nicholas Jackson from Villarreal. You would imagine he's going to be their option going there, unless Romelu Lukaku makes, you know, the mother of all turnarounds and starts for this Chelsea team. I mean, we've seen bigger comebacks in football, so who knows? But I think at the moment, if they do indeed sign Caicedo, that will be their starting 11 for next season, and it's a very exciting one. I think it's one, you know, definitely capable of a top 4 finish. I still think they're probably, you know, a year or two away from challenging for the league again, but I think it's a very good team. I really do. If I was to give it a rating now, 7.75. I think I'm going to split it down the middle of 7.5 and 8 out of 10. We have finally arrived at my favourite part of the video, and that is Arsenal. Obviously, being an Arsenal fan, I am very excited to rate this team because I love it. I absolutely love this team. After what we did last season, people say, "Oh, no, we bottled it. Oh, we didn't do any good. No, we didn't win anything." I don't really give a fuck because this team is developing. It's developing so nicely together, and I love the signings that we've made. I think Kai Havertz is so heavily underrated, and I have 100% trust in Mikel Arteta to get the best out of him again. I think we're going to see him more deployed as a midfielder, whether he's played in that number 10 role or he swaps positions in this 11 with Martin Odegaard and plays alongside Declan Rice. I don't know, it'll be an interesting one. I think that they're all going to sort of pivot around each other, but Declan Rice, I mean, I struggle to think of a more influential signing that Arsenal have made. I think the last time we made a massive signing like this was probably Mesut Ozil. That's how big this signing is. It is just out of this world for us. You looked at, if you showed this 11 to an Arsenal fan 12, 24 months ago, they would laugh at you, and so would all the rival other fans as well. But it just shows you where we've got to at this point. And I mean, Ramsdale, starting to become one of the top goalkeepers now in the Premier League. Saliba and Gabriel, especially Saliba. Saliba, I think, one of the best centre-backs already in European football. I like Zinchenko at left-back, although he can sometimes leave that area a little bit exposed. Ben White on the other side is criminally underrated by so many rivals fans. It's incredible. He was so good last season. The way he takes the ball forward, it's an absolute art. And then Martin Odegaard, I mean, you don't need to say anything about Martin Odegaard, how wonderful he was last season. Rivaling Kevin De Bruyne, the best midfielder in the league for goals and assists. That takes some doing. And then Saka and Martinelli, the two most exciting wingers in the league. Fact, Jesus up front is an area that I do think we could strengthen on. That might be harsh because we've not really seen the best from Jesus yet, because obviously he had his injury throughout the middle of last season, which massively impacted his ability, and his stats really. But I think we could upgrade there. We could, if there was a world-class striker out there available, I think we could definitely upgrade there. But apart from that, I see no way that I can rate that any less than an 8 out of 10, quite frankly. And so we've come to the end of the video, and last but not least, Bayern Munich, the champions of Germany. And this was a very hard formation and team to put together, because obviously now with Thomas Tuchel there, we don't know what kind of formation he may implement going into next season. Now he may get the signings that he wants. Obviously with the signing of Kim Min-jae at centre-back, they may go with a back three of Kim Min-jae, Matthijs de Ligt and Dayot Upamecano. But I've gone with this formation because I believe that this at the moment is probably their best team. Obviously Manuel Neuer is still injured, so I don't know the timeline on when he's back, but a back four of Pavard, Kim Min-jae, de Ligt and Alphonso Davies, that rivals any other defence I think in European football without a doubt. Kimmich and Goretzka in midfield, I mean, that's solid, isn't it? That is absolutely rock solid. That epitomises German football, I think, those two, especially Kimmich. And then the front four, that's how I'm going to deem this, as a front four. Leroy Sané, I would imagine, would start over Serge Gnabry, although I do prefer Serge Gnabry, but for the purpose of this video I've gone with Sané. On the other hand, Mane, whether he'll still be there or not, I don't know, because he's continuously linked with a move away after just one season. Whether he may end up going to Saudi, that's another question. If he does indeed leave, we could maybe see Sané played that side, Gnabry played the other side. And then I've gone with Thomas Müller playing just behind Jamal Musiala. I would imagine that's going to be the front two because they don't have many other options. Let's be real. The rest of the options they have as forwards are young players that don't have a whole lot of experience yet. Obviously, we know that they're trying to sign Harry Kane. If they signed Harry Kane, I feel that they would get #1 spot here. I really do, because having Musiala just behind Kane, that would be goals. Just goals and goals and goals. But as it stands right now, looking at that 11, I feel an 8.75 is a fair rating. However, if they did sign Harry Kane, I believe it's a 9.5 out of 10. There, I said it. But it is now time to rank all of those together and give you the top 5 starting 11s in European football. And so in conclusion, this is my final ranking, the final list. It's a top 6 in the end because, as you can see, 3 of the teams I've put on the same rating. But I don't think it's unfair. I don't think I've been too heavily biased towards Arsenal based on what we did last season and how much we've improved on our starting 11. And I don't think it's, unfair to put Man City at the top. They are the reigning champions of Europe. They have the best starting 11. I don't think that can be argued against. But I don't think the likes of Bayern or PSG are far away at all. I think they're both one player away from rivaling Man City for that top spot. Real Madrid, Barcelona and Arsenal, I think, are 2 world-class players maybe away from rivaling Man City as well. And then you've got the likes of Liverpool, United, Chelsea, the Italian clubs. I don't think any of them are far away either based on how I've ranked all the teams. So yeah, I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts. I'd love to hear in the comments if, what I've got wrong, if people agree, if people disagree. Like I say, there's no need to be a knobhead about it. If you don't agree with something, honestly, just, politely put it in the comments. You haven't got to, start calling me every name under the sun. Again, this is my opinion. I am not a genius. I am not claiming to, that any of this is factually accurate. It's my opinion. So yeah, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear what you thought of the video as well. If you did like the video, of course, please give us a like. And if you like any of our other videos as well, then all I would ask is that you consider subscribing to the channel. Every single subscriber makes such a massive difference, honestly. And we're slowly but surely building the channel up. And we've got some very exciting plans for next season. So in conclusion, thank you very, very much if you watched the entire video, even if you just watched little segments. I'm going to put in the comments below of each team, so you don't have to watch all of them if you don't want to. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you very soon.